people who are sick and weak and elderly who need help, and there are not enough young people to do the hard work to keep on putting money into the government system so that those people who are elderly can have the benefits that they work so hard for themselves. So, you know, there's a lot of demographic imbalances in the United States and in Europe. And then there's another problem of overpopulation in China, in India, and in Asia in general. There's just so many people being born, and therefore a lot of them in poverty. The same in Mexico, by the way. Just too many people. And the answer is that we need to have zero population growth. At some point, governments all over the world need to agree that we need to curtail how many children you can have in your living life. I believe that every couple should only have 2 children in their physical life. If you want to have more than 2 children, then you should have the right to do so, but only if you pay government, society, a major fine, a major fee. Similar to what you know, the penalties that companies have to pay that have chimney stacks and pollute and stuff. They have to pay an extra fee if they're going to, you know, go beyond their allowance. We need zero population growth badly because the world is getting to be overpopulated. And if you can look at these 2 demographics, this shows you the world today and where it's heading. And this other graphic that I'm showing you right now shows you the world tomorrow under moderate capitalism or another social democracy. If we had social democracy within the next 5 to 10 years, the other graphic shows you what can happen. The world population will begin to drop a bit and stabilize. And it will pretty much be around 3 to 4 billion people, which is about the right number that we can sustain on this planet indefinitely. We cannot sustain 9 billion people. We certainly have trouble sustaining the 6.5 or 7 billion we have right now. And it's not a very good idea to say, oh well, you know what, you're against freedom, the freedom of religious people, for example, to have huge families, because it says for example, in the Bible, you know, propagate your species. You know, it says you know, to prosper and to propagate the species. Now, I want to say something about that. I don't believe that was what the commandment was about. I think it's about, you should have at least enough people born in the world so that the human species doesn't die out. Of course, that's what it means. It doesn't mean have more and more children if you can afford it. At some point, the rest of the world cannot afford to have all those children of yours because they're going to have children. It's just not fair. Actually, if you really think about it, it's just not democratic that somebody who has been lucky enough or criminal enough to make so much money can have so many children, and then their children can have children, and they get to spread their genes throughout ages to come, whereas the poor people who can't afford that, their genetic line just stops at some point. That's not the way it should be. Now, of course, you know, with zero population growth, I think you should look into that more carefully and think about it very carefully. Zero population growth does not mean that there are no new people born at all. That's not true. That's a lie. Zero population growth means 2 children per couple. And eventually, with natural disasters and stuff, the species will start to go down to a level that is normal again. And then when it's normal, we might give a little bit more allowance if necessary. Demographics has to be managed by society as a whole. We all should have a right to say how many people are born into this world to some extent. We should have an ability to motivate and give an incentive to people to respect zero population growth. And people who abide by the 2 children per couple theory, which works, would get certain benefits for that, of course. We need to worry about it because we're not the only species on this planet. You know, there are a lot of other wonderful creatures on this planet, and many of them are going extinct right now as I speak, because we are overpopulating this planet and we're destroying the environments with our excessive consumption of artificially manufactured goods that don't go back properly into nature and don't get reabsorbed into the earth and soil and whatever. We are polluting this planet and we are causing rainforests that provide us oxygen to be destroyed because we're cutting them down. We're just doing so much damage to the planet because there's so many of us. Now again, the answer is not world war, and like World War I was an attempt actually to cull the masses by the rich. You know, World War I was deliberately created as a result of the pressures that were gathering in Europe of not enough space for so many people, people were getting frustrated, and there was economic problems, and the rich decided, hey, you know what? Let's just, instead of risking a revolution and having these poor people become, you know, revolting with physical arms against us, let's just send them off to war to kill each other, and let's make some money in the process. Unfortunately, World War I got out of hand with chemical weapons and other weapons of mass destruction, and eventually the powers that be, the interest groups that were fighting each other in a sense, also working to fight each other. They work together, they cooperate in order to fight each other, but they were not the ones taking the real damage. The real damage was with the little people fighting the war at the front. You know, those British soldiers, those German soldiers at the front lines in World War I, and others, Americans and Italians, whatever, and in Ethiopia, the poor Ethiopians who had to deal with the fascists. So all these poor people fighting each other for whom? For the rich, for the wealthy. World War I was about simply profiting at the expense of killing off dangerous people, people who were dangerous to the elite. Not dangerous to society, but to the elite. They killed off mostly humanists and progressives and social democrats. They killed mostly social democrats. Oh, they didn't mind the extreme, you know, left communists because, you know, that gave them an excuse to kill off more people. And they don't mind fascists because fascists are useful for them. Sometimes they will prop up a fascist government in order to do the dirty work for them. So World War I is pretty much about a dirty game. Now, I mentioned that because, again, we're talking about demographics. We're talking about world population. War is not the way to reduce the number of our species as human beings, to reduce our number to a sustainable level. The way to do it is through zero population growth, through governance, through social democratic governance. So you can say to me, wait a second, where is there democracy in a country if it's always social democratic? How can you have a left and a right, and how can you have freedom of choice politically if it's a social democracy? Well, within social democracy, there are more conservative views and there are more liberal views. And you can choose that on a local level. In my opinion, on a national level, even if the majority win the elections, the minorities' rights should be protected. It's just that the majority get to make more decisions. But even then, there should be certain isolated cantons where the minority political view is still, you know, the existing way of life. In terms of, you know, that's complicated. That's for another video. But social democracy is just the only realistic option. Now, people say, wait a second, I thought democracy means that you have the right to even vote in, if you're the majority of the people in a certain country, that you have the right to vote into power fascists or Nazis or communists or anybody. And I say to you, well, no. A democracy cannot work even if the majority wanted to. They wanted to vote some people in who would then destroy that democracy. It's the same thing with freedom of speech. I think that you should be able to say in public, express in public, whatever you want. However, if what you say obviously causes riot, people to fear for their lives and then overreact and destroy the safety around us, that shouldn't be acceptable. That's why you cannot sit in a movie theater and as a joke, or even seriously, if there is a fire, say fire. You cannot yell fire in a movie theater because the stampede of people running out will kill more people than the fire would, usually. The best thing to do in case, for example, there is a fire in a movie theater is to simply get up and get out of the theater and let people watch what you're doing.